This is Hot Mike.
Hot Mike.
On the networks of WDAY. Here's Dom Izzo. Time to chat some hockey.
Shot score! North Dakota wins!
The best college hockey writer in the country is on deck.
North Dakota, champions of the college hockey world.
Here's Brad Schlossman.
It is Friday, back with Brad Schlossman. He joins us each and every Friday. This is a well-timed segment because everybody in the sports media world has been talking about hockey that probably never spends more than 20 seconds either thinking or talking about hockey. Let's just start with the obvious. That was a heck of a game last night. That was really fun.
Yeah, it was. High level of play, great action, great atmosphere. That was really fun. It's a shame that we've missed out on that the last two Olympics. They should have done it. I think that's another black mark on Gary Bettman's list of them, and
I agree with that. Yeah, that's a self-inflicted wound, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like, they could have done it, and they opted not to.
Yeah. And the players wanted to.
Yes.
It's Gary Bettman's fault. It all comes back to him. And it was, I was getting texts and this is a made up tournament that may only exist once. It's not even like it has any history.
Right.
I don't know if anyone's going to be remembering who won the Four Nations face-off in 10 years from now. But everyone was watching, and I was getting texts from people who just never watched sports, period. My friends saying, look, I'm watching this game. And I was like, wow, like these people are actually watching this tonight. And the Olympics is such a grander stage that, it was an opportunity to have a lot of people tune in and check out what it's about. And it was just a missed opportunity.
I'm interested in your thoughts on how they capitalize on this. That's always the thing going forward, especially with hockey, is how do they – and because the regular season starts tomorrow, and I guarantee the Wild Red Wings game tomorrow isn't going to have that kind of juice that we just saw last night. So I wonder how hockey capitalize on this, if they can.
It has to when it's going on. I think you have to get people to tune in and then want to come back. So we'll see if people want to come back.
Yeah.
It is a little bit different going back into regular season play. I think there's a big difference between the playoffs and the regular season. The playoffs are very captivating. The regular season, there's a lot of games, and that's kind of the same with a lot of sports. I watch baseball. The intensity is completely different in the playoffs than the 160 regular season games. I think what they have to do is hope that a lot of people who tuned in for the first time will tune in when the playoffs hit.
Yeah, the playoffs are a whole other deal, and people love that. We've talked about this, I don't know how many times on this show, how everybody loves to see the intensity of the Stanley Cup playoffs. It just that best on best is something else. And who else but McDavid would score the game-winning goal? He's the best player in the sport, and why wouldn't he be in the center of everything last night?
Yeah, he came through at the right time, and that's kind of the last time we had one. One of the last times we had one, it was Sidney Crosby scoring the golden goal for Canada in overtime. Sometimes the best players come up big in those moments, and McDavid did last night.
All right, we got to talk about. I'm listening to Sean McDonough call the game, and I hear these names. I hear Brock Nelson. I hear Jake Sanderson. There's a couple other guys. I'm like, all these guys either played in Grand Forks or in vicinity. Of course, Sanderson scores last night, which I thought was ironic because his Olympic experience, Brad, was such a jarring one where he got over there, then he got hurt. It just, I don't know if it because they didn't win the game, if it made him feel any better, but that was pretty neat to see him in the center of things last night.
Yeah, he came up big. It was kind of funny. He was the last defenseman on the roster. And if the defenseman got hurt, they were going to be able to call up Quinn Hughes. So everyone was joking that Jake Sanderson was going to mysteriously get hurt at practice. Well, he's a pretty good player too.
Yes.
And he showed it last night. Even besides the goal, I thought he was fantastic the entire night. And he's going to be a centerpiece for the Americans when the Olympics roll around
Yeah.
again. So yeah, he's had quite the experience already. He has played for the U.S. in the World Juniors. He's played in the Olympics. He's played in the World Championships. He played in the Four Nations. So he's definitely a cornerstone for USA hockey, and I think he's going to be for a long time.
Gosh, he's good. It was you're funny you
Yes.
mentioned that because him scoring a goal last night, like man, that I don't know if that makes up for what happened in Beijing because that was such a disjointed time for him.
Yeah, it was crazy. First he got COVID before
Yeah.
he went over there, so he
Yep.
was late. He gets over there and then he suffers an injury and that whole year, I mean, yeah, he gets injured and then he comes back and he misses some time for UND. He finally comes back and he plays in the first round playoff series and then someone steps on his hand in a goal mouth
Yep.
scramble and he's out for the season and UND has to play its regional game without the best player in the country and um, boy was that a weird
Yeah.
year for him, but when he was in the lineup he was special and he's been great for Ottawa, especially as of late, and yeah, he was really good last night too.
We ended our conversation last week talking about the house settlement. UND announced yesterday that they're going to opt out. Any surprises on that from what you can report?
Well, I think I knew that's the way it was leaning. We are just waiting for UND to officially decide on that one. It'll be interesting to see. A lot of UND's peers in football, basketball, and all those other sports are going to be opt-out schools. A lot of UND's peers in hockey are going to be opt-in schools. So I think the next question that we'll have to answer, everyone's talking about who's opting in or who's opting out. The bigger question is, what are the opt-in schools doing?
Mm.
Now, for what one coach told me, his school is going to opt in, but he's not getting an additional scholarship. All of that money is going to football and basketball. So he said, hey, we're an opt-in school. It means nothing other than I have to limit my roster size. It's not that great for me.
Wow.
Now, are there other schools that are going to add scholarships? Yeah, I think so. I think you are going to see some of that. So, just saying you're opting in, like, what does it mean? How many what are you giving one more scholarship? Are you giving two? Are you giving three, 0, 6,
Yeah.
8? What are you doing with it? So, are you offering Alston cost of attendance? I think you really got to dig into some of the details on exactly what it means. But are there going to be rivals that are likely offering more than what UND is? Yes. That's kind of the case already. A lot of the Big Tens have more NIL money than UND has. Arizona State is one of the weird schools in UND conference
Conference.
that's a Power Four program.
Right.
So it's going to be a very interesting time, and we'll see. The one way that UND could get around it is through a collective. Um, in some places, collectives are funding scholarships for athletes
Right.
in all sports. And that would be a way to not be roster size limited, but still be able to essentially give more than 18 scholarships. So a lot of angles in this.
You reported yesterday Western Michigan and Miami, which I was really surprised on both of those. That surprised you that those schools are opting in?
Well, no, because they want their football programs to win.
Yeah. They're
Like,
both
are they
MAC
giving any
schools.
more
Yeah.
money to hockey? We'll
Probably.
find out.
Yeah. Right.
I would suspect if they are, it's not going to be a lot because Miami played in the MAC title game last year. Like they have a great football program, and I think that's where the priority is going to
And that's
go.
where the money's going. Right. Yeah.
The question is, does it eventually trickle down to hockey?
Yeah.
Because I don't know if it does or not. We'll have to find that out. But that's where everyone will say Miami and Western are opting in, UND's not. Well, what does it mean? Are they getting more money to hockey or is it all going to football?
Yeah.
So those are the questions that we'll need to answer in the next 6 months here.
Denver obviously doesn't have football, but you reported leaning that way. I would imagine, right? Is that going to go to hockey or it's not going to go to basketball, lacrosse? That's got to go to hockey, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think lacrosse is probably part of it. I think gymnastics is part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Hockey is part of it. And what's interesting, so the private schools they have their scholarships, but they also give aid too. So some of the private schools are essentially giving more than 18 scholarships already.
Mm.
So uh, how much more does this allow Denver? And, I think there's a good chance Colorado College will, because now all of a sudden CC is one of these non-division ones where they don't have to be roster limited in
Correct.
other
Yep.
sports. Only soccer and men's hockey are there is so um Denver's soccer team, I guess, was in the national title game this
Yeah,
year
that's
too.
right.
So
Yep.
there's where is the money going to go? How much money are they putting into hockey right now? It's a private school, so we don't really know. I can tell you they're giving more than 18 scholarships worth of money right now.
Right.
Or, does this increase that? Probably.
Yeah. Gosh, the tentacles of this are crazy. Everyone, we're all talking football, but the other sports, especially the ones like we were talking about last week, the schools that are Division II and everything, but Division I and hockey,
Yeah.
that's really
It's a
interesting
big
too.
advantage for those schools,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Like those schools can just bump up their two division, like a Duluth can bump up a couple scholarships into men's and women's hockey,
Yep.
and they don't have to be roster limited in other programs. Whereas I think a lot of the Summit schools are probably looking at their roster numbers and seeing if they get roster limited, that's going to cause Title IX
Yep.
problems. And I looked at UND's and counted rosters, and UND would have to cut rosters in 4 women's sports.
Wow.
And the UND's already under roster limits in most of the men's sports. So it's not very easy to say, well, you cut 16 out of women's athletics and cut 16 out of the men's. There's nowhere to cut really in
No.
the men's, but that might be something UND has to figure out for year 2.
Mm.
So UND's opting out for year 1. Now, I think as UND goes forward, there's a very good chance UND's an opt-in school in year 2.
Mm.
So I think if you read Bill Chaves' comments, he wants to see exactly what the settlement is and what they're dealing with. We don't know what that's exactly going to be till April 7th. They have to opt in by March 1st. So he's uncomfortable with opting in before knowing the exact terms of the settlement. And we will see what those are. And I think as we go forward, there is a good chance we will see some of these summit schools opting in year 2.
Yeah, that's the ever changing on that is something to certainly keep an eye on. Because I think NDSU's in the same boat as well. Want to see where things are at and then decide
Yep.
maybe in year 2 they want to go in too.
Yep.
Should we actually talk about stuff on the ice?
Sure, yeah. College athletics, man.
I know it. Everything everything away from the ice court field is just is intense. What's going on it? UND has 3 series left. A monster win they got Saturday in Denver. Now Duluth is here, and I know you wrote about this earlier in the week. That this is how different is this Duluth team from when they saw them earlier to what they're going to see this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, Duluth had a few injuries that week, and the biggest one to me is Max Plant. Like I've watched Duluth a few times, and I think Max Plant is phenomenal. He's been as good of a player as there is in the league this year. He's a freshman. He's really smart, really skilled, poised, and he's really been a driver for Minnesota Duluth. So I think that changes the Bulldogs quite a bit. When you look at their roster, I don't think there are a lot of I said at the start of the year, if Minnesota Duluth is fully healthy, I think they're a pretty good team. But if they have injuries in their top 6 forwards, they don't really have the guys to slide up. And so any sort of, and it was the same last year. Well, what happened? Max Plant gets hurt game 1 of the year, and that the depth just isn't quite there. But now you insert Max Plant back into the lineup, and you have guys on the right lines again. So we'll see how that impacts the Bulldogs. Clayton Knapp's playing well, and UND is going to be shorthanded on the back end. We know that they've been playing without Bennett Smolik. Now EJ Emery is suspended for this game. Dave Montgomery, who's filled in, is out this weekend. So Tanner Komzak, who played forward last weekend, is going to be sliding in as the 6th D man. We'll see how UND manages minutes, but yeah, you're going to see a lot of those top 3 4 D-men this weekend for UND.
UND has a 1-point lead over Denver for the last home ice spot. I mean, there's 3 series left. It's hard. It's probably almost impossible to predict what they need win-wise to secure. They just need wins, right? Bar none. They need regulation wins, I would say, right?
Yeah, and what I'm actually looking at right now is Omaha. So Omaha is ahead of UND by. Do you have the standings in front of you?
Up by points? 7 points right now.
Okay, it's 7. So Omaha has played 2 extra games than UND. So UND essentially has 6 points available that Omaha does not have. Also, Omaha closes with Arizona State and North Dakota, 2 pretty good teams.
Yeah.
And North Dakota's up in Grand Forks, which may or may not be an advantage with the way UND's played on the road this year. They've played better, so I don't know what that means. But Denver, right behind Denver, plays Miami and St. Cloud the next 2 weeks.
Oh.
That's 9th and 8th. So I think Denver's going to rise in the standings. I think the team you got to watch is to see if North Dakota and Denver can catch Omaha, because the Mavericks have a very tough schedule. They've played 2 more games. And if you look at some of Omaha's analytics, Simon Latkozy, the goalie, has been really, really good for them. And if he's average in some games that they've played in the second half, they lose. So I think that's what I'm watching right now. Can UND and Denver both catch Omaha?
That's a brutal end of the season for Omaha with their schedule on that, but that's the way. I mean, UND doesn't necessarily have layup city either with what they have after this weekend with Western Michigan on the road, and we know the struggles everybody has going to Kalamazoo. That's not an easy place to win.
Yeah, Western Michigan hasn't lost a regulation game this entire season in NCHC play.
Man.
And the Broncos can win the Penrose Cup if with a sweep this weekend at ASU, which will be very difficult. But it's not an easy schedule for UND. But we'll see if the Fighting Hawks can continue what they did on Saturday, which was a really good effort out at Denver.
My last thing for you, I mean, that felt like back against the wall, kind of, especially how the game Friday went. Did you get that sense? That's how they play, and they're gonna need that the rest of the way.
Yeah, I mean, UND has played pretty well the last couple Saturdays. I think they need to bring that a little bit on Friday. TJ Sentenfelter played fantastic on Saturday. And then I thought the other thing, UND didn't leave Mo to dry either. I thought that was a big deal. So we'll see. But the other thing UND did is UND scored a power play goal, which is big. Finally got more than 2 chances in the game. I think special teams are a really big part of it. So UND's penalty kill has been one of the big problems this season. UND's, in the ranks 50-something in the nation in penalty kill. Well, UND switched up some of its schemes on the penalty kill, and it's been really good the last 3 games. It allowed 1 power play goal at Denver, and it was a 5-on-3 for like a minute. But Denver had several chances, and that's the number 1 power play in the country. And UND did a great job on that. So if you can start winning the special teams battle, that will flip a lot of games that they've played so far this year. So I think that's going to be something UND needs to continue going forward, is winning that special teams battle.
You're the man. Appreciate all the info as always. Enjoy the games this weekend. We'll do this again next week, okay?
Perfect. Thanks, Tom.
Brad Schlossman joins us each and every Friday at 10 to give us the UND hockey angle. Fighting Hawks host Duluth coming up tonight and tomorrow up at the Ralph. Part of a monster sports weekend we got going on locally. We'll break. We come back. Much more on the baseball chat. And we're heading to Fort Myers to check in on the Twins here in about 15 minutes as well. Back on this Friday morning edition of Hot Mike right after this.